What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hockey Time here for the first video of the 24-25 preseason, if you want to call it that. I've been seeing some other rankings and tier lists and other discussions going on throughout the hockey scene on Twitter, YouTube, etc. So feeling a bit inspired to throw my own content out there and get things started for the upcoming year. I just recorded a 50-plus minute version of this video, of which the quality was awful. So this is take two. I'm going to try to make it a bit, and by a bit I mean a lot more condensed. So if it seems like I'm rushing through things, I apologize in advance. But basically what I'm doing here is tier listing all 32 NHL teams as far as their outlook is concerned for the upcoming season. And again, this is all just my subjective opinion. I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments as always below. It is my favorite part of doing these videos, is getting through the discussions with you guys and seeing what other people think. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. If I have to take awkward pauses, I apologize in advance. But first and foremost, the Anaheim Ducks definitely still going to be in the bottom here. Largely the same team from last season. They bring in some depth pieces, but pretty much just going with the same roster as last season and hoping to grow from within. John Gibson, shockingly, is still an Anaheim Duck, so he's probably going to be their starter this year. The defense is still kind of whatever. The forward group is still kind of whatever. Hopefully a fully healthy Trevor Zegras, a full year of Leo Carlsson, and a new full year of Cutter Gauthier will help this team a little bit. I don't see it helping them enough to put them anywhere other than the bottom tier, though. The Boston Bruins. The Bruins, despite their strange offseason, they bring in Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. Both contracts are probably overpayments, but this team's still going to be a playoff team despite losing Linus Ullmark. They're still good enough. I don't think they wow you really anywhere on paper, but as far as the East is concerned, they're still probably the fifth or sixth best team, maybe. I know they were better than that this season. I think they probably fall off a bit this year. So nonetheless, the Bruins will make the playoffs pretty safely. The Buffalo Sabres, I wish I could say the same. I would love for Buffalo to make it in. They had a weird offseason. Jason Zucker comes in. He's probably their biggest addition. They have a full season of Bo Byram. Hopefully, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen can have a full season at the top end of what he was last year. But even if that's the case, I don't know that Buffalo is going to have enough to sneak in. So I do have them just outside the playoffs here in the left out category. Creatively named, I know. The Calgary Flames. I actually think this team's going to be a basement dweller. I'm not going to lie to you guys. The goalie tandem of Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar is not going to be enough. They're pretty mediocre at damn near every position, and they have guys that are going to have to really excel from what's expected of them if they want to get even close to playoff contention. So I do think they're going to end up in that bottom tier. And I think the other teams in the West have just improved enough that they're going to clock closer to Calgary while they're also dropping down. It's not going to be this dramatic fall off, I don't think, for them. But it's still going to be a bit of a fall off, and the other bottom teams in the West are improving. So I do think they're in that bottom tier. The Carolina Hurricanes, they had a pretty hectic offseason. They lose Jake Gensel. They lose Evgeny Kuznetsov. They lose Tony DeAngelo, if you want to call that a loss. They lose Brett Pesce. They bring in Walker. They bring in Gostisbehere. Yeah, I mean, this team, they still got Freddie and Pyotr Kochetkov, so the goaltending's good. I don't think that they're dramatically worse. They're definitely not better, but I think they are still a cup contender. I don't think they're a cup favorite like they may have been going into this past season, especially after they added Jake Gensel. But they're still going to be a very solid team. They'll probably be better than the Bruins. They'll probably be a Metro divisional spot. I just don't know that I would call them a cup favorite at this point. The Chicago Blackhawks, I'm certainly not calling a cup favorite. They are a much improved team from last season. Don't get me wrong. Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, a couple new ads on defense that I'm totally blanking that I did mention in the other recording of this video, I promise. And then Laurent Brossoit is the new backup goalie. It's a lot more help for Connor Bedard. Alec Martinez is the defenseman that I was thinking of there. So they bring in some depth. It's a better team overall, but it's not going to be enough to get them out of this bottom tier. I do think they are improved. I'm not saying they didn't get better in the offseason. I just don't think it's enough for it to be a dramatic change for them. The Columbus Blue Jackets, this is a sore spot, so I'm not going to touch on it for long. But, of course, the loss of Johnny Gaudreau and his tragic passing this past weekend. I'm recording this on Tuesday the 3rd. Obviously, does not make this team any better. They were going to struggle even with him in the lineup, and now without him, that's going to be that much harder. And, of course, the emotional loss is going to have its toll on the team for, I would imagine, quite a while. So it's a tough start to things for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And rest in peace, of course, to Johnny and Matt Gaudreau. no clean transition here for that. So moving on to Colorado. The Avs, despite their weird cap situation, are still going to be a very good team. They're without both Landeskog and Achuskin to start the year, and even with that, they still have a very dangerous top six. They make some good defense adds in Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Shillington. Big question for them is still going to be the goaltending. Is Georgiev going to improve from last season? He had a great year one, a kind of whatever year two, but Justus Annunen stepped up pretty well at the end of last season. So will he see more ice time? I'm almost certain of that. And then it's a matter of whether or not Georgiev forces Jared Bednar's hand to keep him in the net and not put Annunen in the net. The Avs will be in good shape, and even if their goaltending is not that great, they will still be a good team. That is pretty safe. The Dallas Stars, another team that's pretty safe. They did make some not so great in my eyes moves in the offseason. They bring in Lyubushkin, they bring in Matt Dumba, they bring in Brendan Smith. They lose Chris Tanev, Joe Pavelski retired. They probably downgraded in the backup goalie role, but all in all, this team's still definitely a cup contender. They have maybe the most well-rounded forward core in the league. Logan Stankoven and Maverick Bourque stepping in as full-time NHL players is going to help this team out. It may not completely replace what Joe Pavelski brought to the team, but if it doesn't, it will get damn close, and they will still be a very, very good team, and they will make the playoffs. I have zero concerns about the Dallas Stars, despite having a bit of a down offseason. The Detroit Red Wings, talk about weird off seasons. I've said that for a lot of teams already. The Yzer plan was very muddy this offseason, I guess that's the best way to put it. They're still running the three, and I think they picked up Jack Campbell, so a four-goalie system in Detroit. They definitely don't have Sebastian Cossa just waiting to play NHL games. Why would you ever have four goalies with Sebastian Cossa? I don't know. But anyway, they bring back Patrick Kane. They have Vlad Tarasenko. Their defense is really weird. Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider are not signed to contracts yet, and the team is somehow still a playoff hopeful. So that's interesting, I guess, but I don't think they make it in. I am sorry, Detroit Red Wings fans. A team that definitely will make it in, the Edmonton Oilers. They had a quiet first, 10 hours of free agency, and then they added Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner, and now their top six is terrifying. So that's awesome. They're going to be a very good team. Stu Skinner will still be the starting goalie. He might improve. He might not. If he doesn't improve, they're still going to be a really good team and will be probably at the top of the Pacific Division because it's maybe the most mid-division in hockey. This Oilers team it's the most disgustingly stacked top six in the league, and it's not close. Like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Skinner, and Arvidsson should be illegal. There's no other team that can really compete with that, and I don't think it's that close. And then on defense, they lose Broberg, they lose Cody Ceci. They still have their top three of Ekholm, Bouchard, and Nurse. Nurse is not that great any longer, but it's still a decent top three. It doesn't matter. This team's going to outscore their problems, and they will be just fine, and they are probably my number one cup favorite heading into the season. Speaking of cup favorites, the Florida Panthers go right back up there, too. Despite losing Brandon Montour, despite losing Anthony Stolarz, they did enough to fill the gaps of losing those pieces amongst others that this team's still going to be fine. They're still built for playoff hockey. They have enough depth up front on defense, and in losing Anthony Stolarz, they can now bring Spencer Knight back in as a full-time backup to Sergei Bobrovsky, who looked marvelous last season. So this team's going to be fine. I am not at all worried about the Florida Panthers. The Los Angeles Kings, this is a weird one. I do think they make it. They get rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois, which is a good thing. Their defense is kind of downgraded. It's a weird group there now that has Doughty and then a lot of young guys. Their forward group is still solid. They're going to have to play with a lot of structure, and Darcy Kemper is maybe an upgrade if he's healthy and playing at 100% to Cam Talbot. He tends to do well in structured environments, which LA definitely can be one. So this team should be solid. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't know how close they'll be to being outside the playoffs, but all that being said, they're probably a first-round bounce for the sixth year in a row, it feels like. And if it's Edmonton again, that would just be hilarious. Minnesota, I had a tough time with this team the first time I ran through this ranking. I'm very confident in them making it now. I don't know that they are a strong playoff, 100% in, but their top six is really, really good. I forget exactly what it is off the top of my head. Hartman, Boldy, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Eriksson Ek, and Rossi, I think, is the top six. I'm missing one. Jonas Johansson, Jesus Christ. Ryan Johansson, the last one. No, not Ryan Johansson. Holy smokes. One of the Johanssons. Marcus. Jesus. They have a really good top six. Their defense is like a middle of the road. And then they have 3 NHL quality goalies. It's just a matter of who steps up and does the job. I would love to see Jesper Wallstedt get into some more games, but Fleury and Gustafsson are probably going to make that difficult. There's a chance one of them gets moved at the deadline for a better piece. They're still in cap hell, so I don't know what that piece might be. But that's an option there for Billy Guerin, who seems to love to make some interesting moves. And this Wild team, despite the weird, negative air around them going into free agency, I think they'll make the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens will not, but I think they're improved, and I think they get out of this basement tier. They pick up Patrick Laine, which I think is a risk-free move for them. They were never a contender this year. They were never going to be a contender next year. Why not add a guy that at his peak has 40-plus goal upside? And if he doesn't do that, oh, well, you weren't contending for a cup anyway. I love it for Montreal. Give me all of it. They also, hopefully, will have a full year of Kirby Dach, who did not play last year and looked very good in the preseason. It's preseason, I know. But he could be a very, very good piece for Montreal that I think people are just forgetting existed. So this team will be improved. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they have one of the more promising futures of any team in the league right now, I think, and they will be improved. They're going to be playing, I think, meaningful games into January, maybe February if they're lucky, and then it'll start to fall off the rails a little bit. Montembeault and Primo is the goaltending tandem. It's not great. It was fine last year. I think it'll still be okay this year. It's not enough to make the playoffs. We're not kidding ourselves here, but they are an improved team, and it'll be exciting, I think, to watch Montreal Canadiens games again this season. Speaking of exciting, the Nashville Predators said, let's spend all our money this offseason, and they went and got Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea, and then got one of the better backup goalies from last season in Scott Wedgwood to back up their arguably top 3 goalie in the league in UC Saros, so they're going to be a playoff team. There's a chance they contend for the Central. That might be a long shot, but Dallas is a little worse, I think. The Avs are worse without Nichushkin if neither him nor Landeskog come back. They're a playoff team. It's just a matter of how well this all clicks. The Brady Shea contract is an overpay. I really like the UC Saros deal. I think they have a lot of depth that proved me wrong every time I spoke the Nashville Predator name last season. I cannot tell you how many times I said this team wasn't going to make the playoffs. They did. They get bounced in the first round, but they still made it, so I was wrong. They're going to make it this year. I don't think I'm going to be wrong about that. It's just a matter of how far they go and if they make more changes in the deadline. The New Jersey Devils, this team will also make the playoffs again this season, and I think, call me crazy, they should probably go here. I'm putting them here. I love what this team did in the offseason. They addressed the goaltending issue. They get a top, maybe at his peak, he's a top 10 goalie for sure in Jacob Markstrom. And then they completely stabilized the defense in adding Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon. Hopefully a full healthy season of Dougie Hamilton. The same for Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. Improvements from Luke Hughes and Shimon Nemec. And this team is really good if all of that happens. And even if it doesn't, they should still make the playoffs. They are a much, much, much improved team from last season, just with the addition of Dillon, Pesce, and Markstrom. Never mind the health issues. Just adding those 3, they're a playoff team this year. If those other 3 guys stay healthy, they're a very good playoff team this year. So New Jersey is making it, and they are my other cup favorite in the East. The New York Islanders. I'm so glad I'm not a fan of this team. They do nothing in the offseason every damn year. They added Anthony Duclair. They made him cut off his hair and shave his beard. He's going to skate really fast for them and probably score 20 goals. And they're just going to miss the playoffs because they are the definition of mediocrity. I'm so glad I'm not a fan of this team. Sorokin's going to have a bounce-back year. Varlamov will still be good. Their defense will still be very structured. They're still going to be a good team. They might be the best team outside the playoffs this season, but I do think they'll finish outside the playoffs. Their counterparts in the New York Rangers will certainly not be outside the playoffs. They are arguably still the best team in the Metro Division heading into this year. They have, in my opinion, the best goalie in the league. I know he didn't win the Vezina, whatever. I love Igor Shesterkin, and Jonathan Quick was fantastic for them last season. They lose some pieces. They bring in some pieces. There's drama with the captain. None of it is going to matter. This team's still going to be very, very good. They still have more than enough depth up front on defense and obviously aforementioned in net. This team's going to be good. They could very well win the President's Trophy again this year. We'll see what happens. They're definitely a cup contender. They should maybe still be a cup favorite. We'll see. The Ottawa Senators, this team, it's the same category as Buffalo, man. Like, they should be improving. I just don't think they've done enough. Like, their defense is still so... It's just not there. Like, they lose Chikrin. They bring in Nick Jensen. It's not... Like, it's Shabbat and it's Sanderson versus the world back there, man. And at least they have a goalie now in Linus Ullmark. And, like, the top six is still good. They bring in Perron. That helps. I still just don't think it's enough. I want it to be enough. I want to see this team in the playoffs. I just don't think it's happening. So I have the Senators getting left out. Another team that's getting left out, and they're actually going to be mediocre at best, is Philadelphia. I think this is the closest, this past season will be the closest they get to the playoffs for the next 2, maybe 3 years. They bring in Michkov. Super exciting. I can't wait to watch this team. They just don't have enough. Their defense is all right. They have Cam York. They have Jamie Drysdale. They have Travis Sanheim. Like, that's a decent little core. It's just not good enough yet. And then in net, it's Sam Ersson and Ivan Fedotov, man. Like, let's just be real. That is not enough. It's not. It's not. I hope this team performs above expectations the way they did last season. I hope they're tight in the playoff race once it gets down to it, but I don't think they will be. Unless Matvei Michkov is insane. And even then, it probably won't be enough to drag this team across the finish line. We forget that Carter Hart played like a decent chunk of games for this team this season, and they were pretty solid across that stretch. And they were still good in parts, I should say, at the latter half of the season, but it's not going to be enough to get them across the finish line this year. The other Pennsylvania team is in the same boat. Pittsburgh, they bring in Kevin Hayes. They bump down Lars Eller in doing so to the fourth line, and that's a much more healthy group of centers. I think Crosby, Malkin, Hayes, and Ehlers sounds much better than Crosby, Malkin, and Ehlers. It's still not going to be enough. Their defense is like 2 forwards in Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang, and then Marcus Pettersson's okay, and then it's the rest of the bodies that they have, and that's not going to be enough. Tristan Jarry, if he can overcome the battle of himself, has the ability to be a very good goalie. He's a year removed from being in the All-Star game and having a really solid season, but when he's off his game, he is holy smokes off his game, and Alex Nedeljkovic has not proved to be consistent enough to be there yet. So realistically, this team is like the picture of mediocrity, but I do think, like, stats-wise, they get close enough to be left out. And yeah, I would love to see Sid get one more shot at it, as much as I love the Capitals and hate the Penguins, but I don't think it happens this year. The Sharks certainly do not get close. They are one of the lottery boys for sure. Like the Blackhawks, they're a much improved team from last year. They bring in some names: Tyler Toffoli, Alex Wenberg, Macklin Celebrini via the draft, Will Smith via prospect. They get Yaroslav Askarov, the biggest goalie prospect since maybe Carey Price. This team is definitely improved. It's just not improved enough to even get them close to the playoffs. They will be up there with, like, all of Anaheim, Chicago, and the Sharks will be improved kind of like in unison. They'll go from really, really bad to just quite bad this season. And then next year it will be improved, and then the year following it will be improved, and the year following that, all 3 of them will probably make the playoffs. But for now, they're still all lottery boys together. The Seattle Kraken, this one was a weird team. I wanted to put them in the playoffs. I really, really did, but I don't think they have it yet. They get Chandler Stevenson. They get Brandon Montour. I just don't think it's quite enough. I would love to see Decord and Grubauer have another really good year and bring them close, but even if that happens, their scoring's not quite there yet. They need bounce backs from McCann, from Beniers, from Burakovsky to an extent. Shane Wright should hopefully be in the NHL for the full season this year. And even if all that happens, they probably still don't make it, as much as I hate to say it. This team is so mid, and I want them to be good, but they're just mid right now, and I just don't think they're going to sneak in. The Blues, I didn't realize how sad this team is until I recorded this the first time, and then they got the Torrey Krug injury too, which makes it even worse. He's out for the season after ankle surgery. They do get Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, which is exciting for them. They have a decent young core: Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Jake Neighbors. Throw Holloway and Broberg in there. Like, it's decent. Joel Hofer as well. One of the better young backup goalies in the league. And then Jordan Binnington, when he's on his game, is very good. When he's off, he's off. This team just doesn't have the tools. They don't have the firepower. They certainly don't have the defense. And the goaltending is too inconsistent, I think. So I don't even think they're going to get left out. I think they're going to be in this mediocre at best group. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I will be. The Tampa Bay Lightning, one of the best lines in hockey with Gensel, Point, and Kucherov. That's going to be disgusting. They might all surpass 100 points. Like, it's very, very possible. Beyond that, the Lightning are no longer this powerhouse. They weren't last year, but like they're really not this year. It's Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel on their second line, and then it like really, really falls off for their forwards. On defense, their left side is fine with Hedman, McDonough, and Moser, and on the right, it's like really, really not fine. And then Vasi, a year removed from his back surgery, a year and some change removed from his back surgery, will hopefully be better than he was last year. Their backup's still Jonas Johansson, who I definitely don't love. This team should still make the playoffs. They'll probably finish second in the division, in the Atlantic Division, maybe. They might finish behind Boston. I don't know. Those teams are tight. They're in really similar spots. Their top line will carry the weight. They should still make the playoffs unless Vasi gets hurt. And beyond that, we'll see what happens because losing your captain is not easily replaceable. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they did not lose their captain. Well, technically they did, and then they replaced it with the guy that probably should have been the captain the whole time. They make some improvements on defense that were much needed. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Chris Tanev. Joseph Woll will be the starter. Anthony Stolarz is one of the most capable backup goalies in the league, so when Joseph Woll gets hurt, Anthony Stolarz can play. Hopefully he doesn't also get hurt because then they'll be in trouble, but if that doesn't happen, they will be in very good shape. This team's still going to outscore their problems. They're going to be fine. They finished first in the division, like as close to a lock as you can get, and then it's just a matter of what happens when they inevitably get to Game 7 in the first round against either Boston or Tampa. And when that happens, who knows? If they win, great. They have 3 more rounds to win beyond that point. This team should be, by this point, a cup contender. Like, realistically, the core they have, Matthews McDavid, holy smokes, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and Riley is more than enough. Like, that should be plenty, but it hasn't been. So I don't know what else they need to do to make that work, but hopefully this year they do it because I'm sick of Leafs fans crying all the time. Anyway, they will be very good. Utah's a weird team, man. I went from having them here to having them here to having them here. I got in a debate on Discord about whether the Golden Knights were better than Utah for like a couple hours a few weeks ago. And like the more I look at their lineup, the more it confuses me where I should put them. Their goalies are unproven still. Ingram was good last year. Vejmelka was not so good last year. They should get improvements from Cooley, from Gunther. Their defense gets built-in improvement with Mikhail Sergachev coming in. Sean Dursey is still there. It's a much better group on defense. I just don't know that it's quite enough. I don't know if they really belong in the mediocre tier anymore because they're going to be playing meaningful games. They will be exciting to watch. I just don't know that they get close enough to be like just left out. But one of these 2 tiers, I think I'm going to throw them here. I think they're probably the best team out of the mediocre tier when we're all said and done here. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, Utah will be fun to watch this year. That much I will say for sure. The Canucks, they're the final of the locked playoff teams, assuming one of Demko or Shilovs is healthy for like at least 3/4 of the season. Demko has been on and off all summer. Shilovs was reported to have an injury. He could be okay now, I think. But the fact that both of your 2 goalies are having health issues is a concern. So we'll see what happens in Vancouver. If they're both healthy, they're a playoff lock. They made some great additions this offseason. They got rid of Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. They filled those holes with players that will do well in the roles they have to play. Jake DeBrusk, Derek Forbort, I think is going to be fine. This team should still be a playoff team, assuming their goalies stay healthy. There's really not much more to say about Vancouver. Like, they're a weird team in that I feel like their previous season's success carries over more to the following seasons more than any other teams. Like the Canucks, going into last season, were not expected to be that good. They make the playoffs, and now this year it's like they're a playoff lock. And I kind of, like, I agree, they should be there. but it's like it's so weird how the consensus just changes so quickly. So anyway, I do have I'm part of the problem here. I do have Vancouver as a playoff team for sure, as long as Demko and or Shelovs can stay healthy. The Vegas Golden Knights, I'm saving the Golden Knights because this is the second time I'm recording this and I still don't know where to put them. Washington is my last East team in the playoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think they beat out the Penguins. I think they beat out the Islanders, the Sens, the Red Wings, and the Sabres. Brian McClellan went crazy in the offseason. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, Matt Roy, Jacob Chikrin, Logan Thompson, like a bunch of guys that just affect the middle of your lineup enough to make a pretty significant difference. And they'll probably still get bounced in the first round if they make it, but they'll be better. And Ovi might score more, which is all that they care about right now. So, as a Caps fan, I love it because they're going to be more fun to watch. They're completely mortgaging their future. They give no damns at all about what happens after Ovi at this point. But for now, it's enough that it should get them into a playoff spot. I think either Pittsburgh or Detroit are probably the two teams that could say the most. Maybe throw the Islanders in there to like argue that, but I do think they're my last playoff team. I do still think they're a first round bounce unless one of Lindgren or Thompson goes crazy, and the defense will be better. So like, I could be wrong, but I still think they're just sneaking in. And then these last two, man, I've wrestled with this now for damn near 2 hours. I don't know which of these two teams is my last playoff team in the West. Like, if we go position by position, the wingers are marginally better on Winnipeg. The centers are just flat out better on Vegas. The defense is better in Vegas by a landslide, and then the goalie is better in Winnipeg by a landslide. And that's if Aiden Hill can stay healthy and Samsonov can like figure it out. Even if both of them are at their peak, Hellebuck is still way, way better. Like, this dude just won the Vezina Trophy. And I know he sucked in the playoffs, but like, played 60-plus games and won the Vezina Trophy. That dude's a top 3 goalie in the league until he retires. So all that being said, I still don't know who to pick. Like, center depth is probably the most valuable thing you can get in this league aside from very good defense. And they have it. I just don't know that I trust Aiden Hill to stay healthy. And if he doesn't stay healthy, what the hell happens when Ilya Samsonov becomes your starter again for a team that's worse? Like, their skaters are worse than the Leafs. But all that being said, I do think Vegas still makes it. I think they're that final team in the West, and I think Winnipeg is the last team out in the West. And it's going to be tight. I cannot wait for this Western Conference race because I don't think either of these two teams are that far off. I think these two teams are both really close and could both sneak in. And then, I mean, the East is fun too, don't get me wrong. But, like, these 5 teams, and you can lump the Wild in there too, it's going to be a bloodbath down to the end, I think. I could be wrong. The West always finds a way to be, like, not that exciting, aside from a couple years ago when Colorado and St. Louis played for the final game to make it. We could get another one of those races. Like, the West is weird this season, and there have been a lot of changes to these Western Conference teams, so it should make for a very, very exciting playoff race. But all that being said, this is my ranking. I will have another like division standing predictions as well as my annual preseason playoff bracket predictions. We'll review my predictions from last season, which were awful. That'll be a great laugh for all of us. And then we'll go through who I think is going to make it through each round in the playoffs this season, and a year from now we can laugh at that as well. So, thank you guys who stuck around for the full 30 minutes here. I said I was going to try to make it 15. I'm a liar. 30 minutes later, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below where I'm wrong, where I'm a moron, all that good stuff. I love the discussions with you guys in the comment section. Subscribe if you really enjoyed it, and we will catch you guys soon. More content coming as the season inches closer. You guys have a good one. Thanks for watching.